You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, hello everyone. This is Alex G, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. I'm really excited today for a number of things. First of all, I want to say that people have been listening to this podcast all over the country. We've had new downloads from Argentina and South America and from Japan. We've had 9 new downloads just in the past week. So listen, keep listening, keep telling your friends about it. I don't know how the word is getting out, but it is getting out, and I appreciate it. Today, I'm recording a very special segment for Mother's Day. And so I have some distinguished gentlemen in the studio with me today, and we're going to be talking about our moms. And so we've got Mr. Jerome Dillard, who is no stranger to our podcast. He's the executive director of EXPO, and he's got one of the top podcast episodes on my show. I appreciate having him back in the studio. We have Enis Ragland, who hails from he's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but he's been working in Madison for the last several years. He is one of our deputy mayors. He has been a public servant for years, and a personal friend. Mr. Ragland, I'm glad that you're here today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And then I've got a fellow clergyman, Bishop Rayford, who is the pastor of the Faith Place in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which is a place just outside of Madison. And listen, this gentleman, not only is he a tremendous leader, community organizer, he heads up our Black Ministers Alliance, but he is a Dove and a Stellar Award nominee. He is a fantastic saxophonist. And either was it for new artists or was that for instrumental for instrumental? So that's Harold Rayford. Google that brother and get his music. Now, those of you who tune in regularly to Black Like Me, we know that I like to do what's called the Black Ice Breaker. And it just helps to loosen things up a little bit and just to find out a little bit more about our guest before we jump into talking about our mothers. And so I got a couple of questions here just to check out our blackness. Hey, gentlemen, have either of you been to a funeral where someone has either passed out or tried to pull someone out the casket?
I definitely have.
Not in recent memory, but it has happened, I think, quite a while ago. I remember something like that happening.
Yeah, you're dating yourself.
I'm dating myself.
Black people don't do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore. We've evolved. I got you. Okay, I'm going to date myself some more. What is a deuce and a quarter?
Oh, that's the electric 225 Buick.
But you went right to the Buick. Oh, my goodness. All right, let's see. I got some other. Did your mothers or whoever cooked in your home leave a big can of Crisco on the stove? Did you grow up with a can of Crisco?
Yes.
With old grease in it?
It was Crisco at one point, but it hadn't been Crisco in a long time. It's bacon grease now.
The fish tastes like chicken and the chicken tastes like fish.
It was a seasoned grease.
My goodness. Yeah. Let's see. I got another one in here. Okay, I'm going to date myself again a little bit more. Young people don't know about this. My daughter wouldn't understand this. And I don't know, Jerome, if this is just a Chicago thing, but I'm trying to see if this happened in Texas or Milwaukee. But do you remember when black people used to have 3 photographs, like 3 pictures, like on their mantelpiece in their homes? Who were those 3 people? JFK.
Martin
Luther King.
And Jesus. White Jesus.
Tyler, did you have that in your home growing up? No, God. You know, people don't talk about that anymore, but you'd walk into people's house. It was like a little shrine. Like, I haven't thought about that in years, but it would be like, wait, who was in the middle? Was Jesus in the
Martin Luther King, I believe.
He was in the middle?
Yeah.
Who was to the left? JFK? And then Jesus would be to the right? Yeah. Man, I ain't thought about that in a long time. We got some people that are listening. Hey, if you don't know what we're talking about, ask your parents or your grandparents. Let me just see. Hey, have you ever made a sandwich out of something besides meat or cheese?
Oh, yeah.
Really, what?
You're talking about sugar sandwich, mayonnaise sandwich,
ketchup sandwich.
Whatever's in the refrigerator sandwich.
Spam ain't meat, so
yeah, you can count. Yeah, you can. Oh my goodness. Oh, hey, let me see. I got a couple of you all are doing good on this. James Brown or Jackie Wilson?
I'm a James Brown fan. I mean, I like them both.
Right.
But if I have to choose, then I'm going with James Brown.
I'm a big Jackie Wilson fan.
Really?
Saw him several times live, and that's why they call him Mr. Showman.
Okay. All right.
James Brown.
James Brown. All right. Hey,
you?
I would say James Brown.
James Brown. Okay.
You know, I was at the theater this week seeing the Infinity Wars, and I saw a poster for a new Superfly. I'm not kidding. Look at Jerome. You almost jumped out your seat. Are you gonna boycott it, Jerome?
I don't know. You know, it seems like duplication is a way of life in this day and time. You know, all the old stuff, Jackie Browns, and
It coming back.
they're coming back.
I was too young to see the original, and then when I was growing up, they didn't have DVR and stuff like that. So I've never. You want to borrow it? Enis, have you seen the old Superfly?
Yeah. I used to watch it all the time.
All the time.
I got a copy.
But the thing is, they can't. They may be able to recreate the movie, but they can't recreate the culture that birthed the movie. You know,
Right.
so I don't see how they could capture.
Yeah. You're
Effectively, Superfly.
Yeah. You know what they messed up? They messed up when they redid Shaft. And I just think getting Samuel L. Jackson, I think he's a great in what he does, but to get him as John Shaft just wasn't helpful. So that left a bad taste about how you're gonna redo some of those movies. But I might just check it out just to see. But I've got to listen to the old one. So Enis or Jerome, if I can borrow your old DVD.
Dig mine up.
You got to. Jerome, do you have the PG? Do you have the PG version, Jerome, or the R version?
Is there a PG version?
No, there is no PG version because pimping ain't easy. And so I have these colleagues who are also influencers in our community. But what we have in common today is that we're all sons. And so we're just talking about fond memories of our mothers growing up, and we're having a conversation about that. And so first of all, let me just clear the air. Let me just find out who the mama's boys are in the room. So we'll get into the other questions, but just please self-identify. If you can say now as a grown man that you grew up being a mama's boy.
Yes, I am a mama's boy.
Jerome is a mama's boy.
I definitely am a mama's boy, and I was actually a grandmama's boy.
Oh,
I was a grandmama's boy.
Oh,
too.
were you really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my, and I still am a mama's boy, but yeah,
You still are.
hey, watch it, definitely. Okay, that's good. So that's gonna be some. You know what? Mama's boys grow up to be good husbands. We know we know how to take care of business. We know we know how to do good stuff, be responsible, and so our mothers are known for so many things, but I just want to just start with just the big thing: cooking, food. If your mom was the cook in the family, because a lot of us, have dads and grandparents who also live with us who are great cooks, but if your mothers were the cooks, like what are some of the signature meals you all remember growing up that maybe she did for birthdays or special occasions?
So I'll go first. In my family, the grandmothers were like the cooks, the big cooks. That was a generation of big cooks. So I'm the youngest of 5. So my mother had a routine. So much of my childhood, my mother was either in school becoming a nurse, or she was working as a nurse.
Sure.
So she was definitely not the stay-at-home mom. She was, a professional, working mother.
And your grandmother was in your home with you?
She wasn't. She lived across town.
Okay.
But while Mama was in school,
sure,
there was no child care in those days. Grandmama was the child care.
Yeah, she was.
But my mother had a routine where my sisters did most of the cooking. So it's like by the time she got home, somebody had the beans in, somebody had the
Sure.
She had assigned things, and I remember growing up that every Sunday, we had pot roast every Sunday, pot roast. That was the Sunday meal.
You knew it was Sunday by the
and
plate.
Yeah, and she would cook pot roast every Sunday, and either after church I'm either going over to somebody's house or somebody's coming over my house. One of my friends, but that's the meal that I remember. Most of her, doing.
That being her signature.
That would be her signature pot roast.
No, that sounds good. Y'all making me hungry.
I think
How
it was
about that?
similar. My mom wasn't a great cook. We had 9. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids.
Big
and
family.
Both my parents worked a lot. I even have brothers and sisters that are 11 months apart, so they had to work, and cooking wasn't a big thing. So again, I had
there were other
sisters,
things that they were
and
focusing on.
They were focusing on
Like having
but my
kids.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I meant.
Exactly. So yeah, my sisters is girl boy, on down to the last two boys. But my sisters were the cooks, and
that's a theme on that.
good
Okay,
job.
no, that's really good. How about
Well,
you?
I can't cook today because I was not permitted in the kitchen when my grandmother was cooking. I grew up in a home with my mother, my grandmother, my stepfather, and my grandfather. My grandmother was an exceptional cook. There
Wow.
was nothing that she could not make. My mom worked second shift, so grandma did all the cooking, and I was forbidden to be in the kitchen.
Wow.
While the cooking was
Well,
going
when did your
on.
mom learn to cook? Because I went to one of your events a couple years ago that your mother catered. You went to Chicago to pick it up and bring it back.
Yeah, she used
I
to
can't believe she did that spread alone and had caramel cakes and stuff. So,
Yep.
so where did she do any of the cooking? Because she can cook now.
She did some cooking. My grandmother was the champion, though.
Was she really?
And I believe she inherited some of that talent from her. My sister is an exceptional cook who I never saw in the kitchen until she was grown, but she inherited that talent.
Man, when we moved to Madison about 50 years ago, my mom came here to go to school. So my mom made a pact with us. She said, "Hey, when it comes to dinner, let's just be, particularly because mom dropped out and then she came back when both Waleda and I were in college. She said, let's just act like roommates. And so, like, y'all cook sometime, I cook sometime, but like while mom was in school when we were kids, man, she would buy like those frozen or Orida onion rings and French fries, and so we ate very light. It was, but then my grandmother messed around and took us to California when we were in high school, and we met some of cousins who picked and cooked collard greens every day. I mean, I was thinking, well, it's not Thanksgiving, it's not Christmas, so we came home and said, "Mom, we want some soul food. We don't want onion rings. We want what our cousins are eating." And so my grandmother made the comment like, "Oh, Verlene can't cook, and if you want my mom to do something, tell her what she can't do." Right. So she started throwing down and learned how to do the greens and all the different stuff. She never got the macaroni and cheese down. My cousin Marcus has that recipe, but the chicken, the barbecue, the grill, she changed her whole menu because we were almost grown and we said we grew up not eating this kind of food. We need to do this all the time. But my mom did this chicken where she would fry it lightly. But then she would have this honey barbecue mix that she would drizzle it with, and then finish it up in the oven so it was crispy like fried chicken, but had this. It's kind of like the barbecue honey tenders that all these places have. But my mom was doing it like 15, 20 years ago. Man, she would have to cook enough for guests to stop by because she would throw down on that. And she made this pea salad thing that's kind of strange, but nobody in the family's picked up that recipe because with her dementia, she doesn't remember how to do those recipes. And I wish I'd asked more questions. Let me ask you this. Your mothers or grandmothers, did they have a standing rule that they cooked enough just in case guests came by? Because it seemed like our folks always thought somebody who didn't have would come by. And folks who didn't have still wanted to provide for others who were worse off.
That was a way of life in the community, man. I mean, my grandmother, when she fried chicken, you could smell it all. I'm telling you, everybody came in. She would stand there and fry chicken for hours.
Wow.
And feed me and my homies
in a cast iron skillet. We didn't have them fried daddies. You didn't have those little French fry baskets that you put down in the grease.
Yeah.
Enis, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, my parents or my mom wasn't, like I said, the best cook, but with 9 kids, my father did a lot of cooking too. He did the barbecuing. He did. He used to make Spanish rice, and that was.
I haven't heard that in years. My mom used to make
specialties, and we used to look forward to that as well. So they sort of shared the cooking, and then my sisters cooked as well. But it was interesting growing up. My grandmother couldn't cook either, and we didn't tell grandma when we were sick either because she put together some concoction that we thought we would die from.
Castor
more
oil.
so than what the illness was.
That's right.
So it was interesting growing up. None of us were more than 2 years apart, and we had 9 kids. You had 9 friends at least. So there was always someone at our house. And then there's at one point where my aunt and her 3 children moved from Philadelphia and lived in our house. And so with 11 in my family, then we had 5 more folks in this one house living together. So, and they couldn't cook either.
They could, man, you gotta start getting guests who can cook. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, the whole notion of going out to eat is a fairly recent phenomenon.
Sure.
I mean, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and there may have been a KFC near us, but we literally never went out to eat.
Right.
So somebody was cooking something.
Right.
And everybody ate.
Everybody had
full.
enough.
In terms of like you said, you could smell the chicken, and there was a structure that existed when I grew up. Like dinner time was at 6 o'clock or whatever time.
Sure.
It may not have been 6, but we sat down and ate dinner, and there was on a daily basis. We would sit around and there would be dinner on the table,
and the family would gather,
and the family would gather.
Time.
My dad and my siblings, we would all sit there and eat. Again, I already mentioned after church on Sundays, we were all sitting around the dinner table eating
roast,
eating pot roast, and it was just family. And I think what made the food good was family. It wasn't how it tasted. It was just being together and everybody sitting around the table, reaching over, passing this and passing that. Can I get some of this? Can I get some of that? And those are the things, that I look back on and I miss the most.
It was
and I wish that, there could be a Snapchat or a picture of me and my siblings fighting over the wishbone,
Oh, yeah.
or something like that.
Wait, did you put it up over your doorpost?
Yes.
When y'all would break, you would?
Yeah. Yep.
Did y'all do that?
Or
to my white engineers and producers, y'all didn't break wishbones and put over that was for good luck. You let them dry out. What, you leave it up there until Easter or something? I can't remember what you did. Yeah, some of that stuff. My daughter just look at me and laughs like, "Dad, what are you talking about putting bones around the house?"
Wishbone. What is a wishbone?
What is a wishbone? People don't even wish on it no more. People got Google. They don't need to wish. Go ahead.
Any of you, if you weren't there at dinner time, did you not eat?
I was never not there.
I was a mama's boy because my mom was gonna make sure I would eat.
Yeah,
but you had a large family.
Right. That kind of
no, you're a large family. That's maybe two of us.
I would get my sister to save me a plate if I wasn't there.
One thing about cooking. When my mom did start cooking, she would cook a whole lot of stuff, but she didn't know how to pack it away. So this is like the pre-Tupperware days,
right?
And so my mom would just put bowls of potato salad, bowls of macaroni and cheese in the refrigerator. So I grew up hating leftovers because it always tastes like refrigerator. I mean, it tastes like whatever else was in there. But when I got married, my mother-in-law, who lives with us, she moved in when Lexi was born because Lexi was sickly and she had to take care of her. But man, my in-laws have like layaway leftover down to a science where they pack stuff up. Man, my mother-in-law wrapped up some ribs that we grilled like in summer. She pulled them things out in January, slow cooked them in the oven, put some more barbecue sauce on it. I had to ask who came over our house and grilled out because she knows how to wrap that stuff up so that you can pull it out for a rainy day.
No freezer burn.
No freezer burn, none of that. I didn't even know that was possible. Enis, earlier you were talking about how people live with you. And I think my mom was a social worker before she got a degree to be one because I can think of like 3 different times where families from out of town actually live with us. In fact, in some ways, I think my mom is personally responsible for doubling the black population in the early 70s because I can think of waves of folks who she would bring to live with us. So I'm curious, did you all grow up in homes where either extended cousins or friends would live with you for a little bit of time as they got up on their feet?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember that saying, just come on in here and make you a pallet on the floor.
A pallet on the floor.
Right. I mean, that's the way our communities function.
And you didn't complain about a pallet on the floor.
You didn't. I mean,
for our listeners, a pallet on the floor, just a couple of blankets, maybe an old quilt that you lay on top of and a sheet and a pillow or something, a soft blanket or something, a blouse you put up under your head, but that's a pallet on the floor.
Yeah. It seemed like someone was always living us. We had an exchange teacher from Jamaica that lived with us for a while. She taught at North Division High School. She was a math teacher. She lived with us. Another cousin that lived with us for a while, other than my aunt and her 3 children.
Sure.
And an additional cousin. So that made the 5. So it was always crowded.
Right.
It was always crowded. That's why I like my solitude these days.
No, I got you. But like in those days, you didn't have like 2.5 baths in a place.
Right.
I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. My mother invited her sister-in-law, my stepfather's sister. She had 5 kids. And then it was our family. My mother was taking care of my grandfather, her dad, who had recently had a stroke. So she moved him from Cleveland. I mean, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like, how do you have 9 people? How do we get out to school on time? One bathroom.
Yes.
One bathroom.
Yes.
How do we get out for school on time? And I don't remember us all sitting down and eating at the same time because that's a lot of folks for a small kitchen. But I do remember the buzz of the multi-generational family. You know, you got grandparents and kids. You always had somebody to play with. Those are really, really fun. Those are fun memories.
Yeah, we had 5 boys, 4 girls. The girls always got to use the bathroom first to get ready because they took longer.
And they had to cook.
And then one of the older siblings was responsible for one of the younger ones. So, you know, I had one of my younger brothers that I had to make sure that he got up and got ready for school. He had clean clothes and everything was together. So, and each one of us older siblings had a responsibility for one of the younger ones.
Oh, so y'all were like the Black Waltons. People don't even know what the Waltons. No, but I remember families with people with big families. Like my friend David Smith had a real large family. But they showed respect to their older siblings almost like they were parents.
Right. Well, they were.
They were parents because you didn't like now. You know, you can just say whatever you want to your older siblings, but the older siblings had the utmost respect of their younger siblings, and they said, "Get in this house, sit down, go on that playground, eat that food." They would. He might get a little lippy, but those older siblings held it down while the parents were working.
But I think that speaks to what we refer to as the extended family,
right?
Because you know the whole notion of there being like mom and dad, especially if you were part of a bigger community. So you have all these aunts and uncles and older siblings who would get you in major trouble. So. You weren't just afraid of mom and dad. Your older sibling could really tune you up.
Yes, they could.
If you got out of line.
And didn't have any problem doing it.
And they didn't have any problem doing it. So you had all of this extended family, these older cousins who were giving you advice, how to fight, how to do all of these things. And then the mothers were off in their corner having conversations about life and husbands or whatever, men folk and all of this other stuff. But there was this community that raised us. So we weren't really just the result of our immediate families.
That's right. But it was extended.
It was the extended family, whether there was a church or a community center or most of what we learned, our social skills, came from our extended family.
Right.
So, you were born into a family and everybody participated in your upbringing. So your name was, hey, you are boy, and all the uncles called you boy. And,
because there's too many names to try
to remember. Because, 11 out of 11 kids, they all had kids and grandkids.
And you better know the intonation in his voice when he says boy, to know that you're the boy he's
talking
about. You're the boy,
and you know that's a good boy. Hey, boy. Or hey, boy. Which one do I need to say, sir, or yes, sir?
Right. Exactly.
But what was not an option.
What's so interesting about what you're saying, Harold, is that often sociologists or people who are trying to critique or understand our communities, whether they're inner city, whatever they are, these are the things we remember about them. But because we had that extended family, and so many people were in the same situation, we weren't thinking who had and who didn't, because folks were eating the same thing, struggling the same way. If you had a large family, you wearing some of your older siblings' clothing, but your neighbors were doing it as well. And so we look back and think about how those communities made us the men, the leaders, the influencers that we are. It's hard when people look back and just say, oh, that was an impoverished community, or how could it be impoverished if it produced men like us and family men like us and people who are responsible. My mom still lives next door. She's in a memory care facility now, but we were driving around this week and I took her to see her neighbor of 50 years, Miss Louise Dunlap. But when my mom worked evenings, and my stepfather did too, Miss Dunlap would sit in that window that's right adjacent to her driveway, because she and mom shared the driveway, and would spy on us. And when mom would come home, she would say, Verlene, them kids was having company. Like, she would just give mom the rundown. So even when I didn't think that, mom could see me, she had informants in the community. But I knew I couldn't be disrespectful to Miss Dunlap, because she is responsible for helping to take care of me and watch out for me. And so not only did we have the nuclear family or the extended families inside our homes, but as you were saying, people in the community who looked out for us too.
But mothers had help. Right. Mothers had help then.
Yes.
That mothers don't have today.
I think you're right.
They had a whole lot of help, whether it was their mothers or their sisters, because if you come from a large family, you're in a large family. And so as families have moved away from this nucleus.
Sure.
They've also moved away from their help and their support. Right. So I think mothers today are at a disadvantage in comparison to our mothers.
They did have a lot of support.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about my mom is that there was no girls' work or boys' work. We all washed dishes. We all washed clothes.
Yes.
We all mopped floors. We all did yard work. And we all learned how to iron. One of the things she said with her boys, I want you to be able to take care of yourself.
That's what they would say.
We all knew how to cook enough to feed ourselves. And those are skills that I still appreciate to this day. My mom worked in a dry cleaner, so I knew how to iron.
Now that explains it.
That explains it. I'm always complimenting this man. This is one of the best dressed men I've ever known in my professional life.
My father was a sanitation worker or a garbage man. He had to have creases in his pants.
Yes.
No cat faces in the collars of his shirts.
Wow.
They had to be pressed.
That's pride. That's
how I was
pride.
raised, and that's how I learned to.
To dress and accessorize. No, that's no. So you say so.
Garbage man.
So your dad worked for the city.
Yeah,
it's interesting. You're working for the city as well, and your mom was a dry cleaner. One of my questions I have for you all is: if your mom's worked outside of the home, what was their profession? What did they do? You mentioned your mom, Harold, was a
my mother was a nurse, a registered nurse. I always get this mixed up. So she was an RN.
Okay,
right. And then later on, she became she was a supervisor over the medical surgical equipment. So when she retired, she was the supervisor for the sterilization process of the surgical equipment for a hospital there in Fort Worth.
And Jerome, how about you?
Well, first of all, I want to touch on that extended family.
Sure, go ahead.
Pastor Rayford, because you hit on a very, very valid point. I didn't have brothers, but I had many, many big brothers.
Yes.
And uncles. And so, that Mr., you don't call him Bob, and that's Mr. Bob or Mr. Dan.
Right.
That was something that really was instilled in us from the big brothers and from moms. I want to give a special shout out to those single mothers out there who have been somewhat abandoned, and I want to touch on the war on drugs and how that segment of our communities took hundreds of thousands of men, big brothers, uncles, fathers, role models out of our communities and left the women to raise boys and young men to be men, and that's just not a good formula there. And I think that's how we got to where we are today.
And incentivizing singlehood, welfare benefits, and incentivizing black women, poor women to not marry.
Exactly.
I think about that old Claudine movie. I mean, that sort of captured that. Remember Diane Carroll and James Earl Jones? It was talking about that, hiding the man in the closet because the social worker is coming by because you're incentivized. So tell me this: what's some of the best advice your mother gave you on life, business, relationships? Think about that for a moment. And I'll start off while you all are thinking. We moved here again, like I said, when I was 6 from Chicago, where everything was pretty much black, African American. I pull out my old picture of kindergarten. The teacher was white, and there was one white student. I mean, there were 40 kids in the class, 36, but there was only one white student. So when I moved to Madison, it was huge culture shock. That's what my world looked like. But my mother instilled in me, you are just as smart as anybody else. Don't you hold your head down. You got my blood running in your veins. You better not fix your mouth and look like you're about to say you can't do something. And so coming in, trying to navigate a community like Madison, which offered a lot of opportunity, but I was 6, and I grown up in a predominantly black environment on the west side of Chicago. Growing up, I was, I've been socialized. She really helped me to get my head on right, because I was always one of 2 black students, usually 2 male black students in my whole class. But she instilled that in me when I was very young, that you look at people in the eye, you speak up, you come in just as prepared, but don't you dare ever use anything who you are, what you look like, as an excuse. That still carries me to this day, and how I work cross-culturally, because I really work from this mindset of being really equal. I know that there are systemic realities, but I was not allowed to believe that anyone was innately better or smarter than I was. Mom didn't play that.
we had a sense, or my mom taught us a sense of family pride and expectations of behavior. Now, some of us strayed from that.
Sure,
but
sure.
Came back to those,
right.
those
but you
teachings.
knew it.
You knew it. And I always appreciated that, you're a Ragland, so you expected to behave this way. Or you're expected to follow these rules of behavior. I remember when I was real young, I stole a candy bar from A&P grocery store, and I came home and I was like, "Where'd you get that candy bar?" I was like,
because you didn't have a receipt or a bag, so she knew you stole it.
She took me back to the store, paid for the candy bar, embarrassed me in front of all these people. And said, I would never do that again.
she taught that lesson.
Yeah, she taught me that lesson. She said, you don't do that, and that's not what we do as in this family. And so she took me to the store and right to the people, said, you took this. And
so listen, your mom was your first offender program. You didn't need any governmental,
exactly.
endorsed program. She marched you right up there because
talk about the beating I got.
Oh man, wait!
Yeah.
You probably got beat there and back. Wait, let me ask you, Mr. Ragland. Was it one of them syllable beatings? Didn't I tell you about stealing from A&P?
Yes. I got several of those.
No wonder you still don't eat candy bars to this day. It's like,
or
the candy bar? No, have a flashback.
You can't get Enis to go on the A&P anymore. If he does, not down the candy line.
He's having a
not down the
flashback.
candy line.
Start sweating.
Man, no, that's really great. So family pride. How about others? What's some of the best advice you remember getting from your mother?
For me, church was always like a very vital part in my household. Growing up, we grew up in. I grew up in a family that went to church literally 5 out of 7 days.
Okay.
And so having a strong sense of a spiritual foundation was something that my mother stressed, and to all of us, making sure that we have that we appreciate hard work, and are willing to put in the time and the effort necessary to reach your goal. So whatever you want to be, you can do that. But you have to be willing to put in the work. So I watched my mother, work through school. I watched my father work through school. I watched them, I saw them go to work every day and create that expectation in us as children.
Right.
And so I think just having a good, solid work ethic, and also another thing is, having good family values. As a husband, she taught me as a husband, take care of your wife, take care of your children. Be responsible.
Right. Be respectful.
Respectful, yeah.
Too. Jerome, did we add anything?
Well, for me, I was diagnosed at 10 years old with a learning disability. Okay. This is when they first came out with those terms. I can remember going to the north side and getting off the bus with my mom and being harassed by some white youth up there calling us the N-word and all this. And we get in there, and I can remember him having me put pigs in squares and everything. And I overheard him telling my mother I had a learning disability. And I believe she was very intentional on telling me I can do anything I put my mind to, and that I was somebody, because I believe it scarred her just as much as it scarred me, only to find out later that, the learning disability, there was something created by a psychiatrist in Chicago. I don't know if it's the same guy I saw, but she really, really pressed hard that I'm better than that, and also don't you leave this house looking any kind of way, and I think that has stuck with me through the years.
Because you're representing the family.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was raised in a very strict religious household as well. So raised as a Seventh-day Adventist, and we were always different because we went to church on Saturday.
Sure, right.
And so we learned to accept being different. And we were always that strange family. They go to church on Saturday.
Right.
They don't cuss or swear. They don't.
So you were Seventh-day Adventist when Seventh-day Adventist wasn't cool.
Right. Exactly.
Back in the day.
Cool.
Right.
So that, I think, helped as well. And with upbringing and, with my parents. But my mom, with 9 kids and always taking care of us and being there, she is my hero. And my mom will be 90 years old in August.
Wow.
She is suffering from dementia. I was just visiting her yesterday, but she also suffered a stroke 45 years ago. So she had been living with left side paralysis, which also more
40 years ago, you said?
45 years
45.
ago.
Wow.
In the prime, almost in the kind of prime of her
Sure.
life. So dealing with that and having to help pull her out of some of the dark places. Why me? Those kinds of things. And, but she's my heart. I look up to her and taught her. And one of the other things that you were talking about, one of the key things that your parents taught you. My mother, because our income was up and down. When you have 9 kids, it's hard to balance that. So we were sort of middle class for 4 or 5 years, and then we're like practically destitute for 4 or 5 years, and then we're back. And so I figured out which end I liked of that. But what she always told us is that if we may not have much, but it is going to be clean and neat.
Yes.
And I mean, we had lived in a house with hardwood floors. They had to be mopped and waxed. No streaks. They come in checking.
No streaks.
No streaks.
They smell like Pine Sol.
The corners had to be clean. The bathroom, you had to clean around the toilet bowl. Everything had to be clean. And being poor was no excuse for not being clean and dressing as well as you could. And I do that to this day. I learned that if I want something a certain way, I think with my first wife, I kind of said she should be doing what my mom taught me. And then I realized that afterwards, of course, that if you want something a certain way, you should do it yourself. So that's the way I do this day. I clean the house and clean it the way I want it to be clean. So
let me ask you all, there's so many attributes that your moms have. I mean, I can hear it as you're talking, and it's great looking in each of your faces as you're telling these stories. I can see you going back in time a little bit and thinking about these great memories. Of the many attributes that your mother's had, which one do you think you exude the most? You think like, man, I get this from my mom or an ability. I'll just jump in as you all are thinking. My mom was a prolific poet. In fact, when she was a young kid, she got spanked because she was accused of plagiarizing when she was in 3rd grade. And the teacher said, "Tell me where you copied this poem." And so when Leleda and I put together her book of poetry years ago, it was our way of just capturing some of her words. But she could just say things so succinctly and make it just rhyme like crazy. So I think my desire to write both essays, poems, but stories, articles, I think that's probably one of my mom's one of her attributes that's in me. And she had a very dry sense of humor. So I think I get my crazy humor from her, because if you're going to be around her, she's going to tease you. So you have to be strong, because she's going. If you weren't looking right, or you didn't pick that fro out right, or something, she was quick with her words, and so I think I learned that from her. How about you all?
Yeah. I think I got my sense of humor from my mom too.
Really,
I kind of know I do, and even to this day. Like when she's had to be hospitalized, sometimes she's messing with the nurses and accusing them of wanting her peppermints and things like that. She just teases them, and sometimes I say she's just teasing you or whatever. But she has a dry sense of humor and a regular sense of humor as well. So I got that.
You get that
from her.
I took my mom one day because Enis and I talk about this because my mom has dementia also, and one day I think she got Clorox wipes and the personal wipes mixed up, so she wiped her face with, so she had some burn on her cheeks, and so I took her to urgent care because I didn't know what it was. She got infected, and so the doctors came in and my mom, and they said, "Mrs. G, what happened?" She said, "I told my son to stop beating me." And I said, and she looked at me and said, "Mama, you can't play with white people like that." I said right in front of the doctor. So I was like, wait a minute. Wait, just for the anger stuff, it just came out like, he angry at his mama. Right. I said, "Mama, your son ain't never been to jail. He's been to. Right. You cannot play with white people up in here. They will isolate us." Right. And so asking you questions, you don't even know what day it is. Right. Don't you tell these people I'm up beating you with Clorox towels. So sometimes you give me me a look before she said something really crazy.
Right.
So I love that even with dementia, I love the fact that the humor is still there, because that lets me know. I mean, I look for those things that I can identify, but shoot, Jerome, I thought I was going to need some reentry services that day. I thought them doctors cut me a look. They ain't nothing funny about hurting the old lady. And listen, I'm not even afraid of the professionals. I'm afraid that if I did hit my mama, she'd do something to me.
Right.
That's right.
I'm telling you, listen, she lost her memory, but she ain't lost weight. My mama's still tough. And so I'm sorry, I just jumped. Other things you all got from your,
I'm going to say contributions I got from my mother. Everybody tells me I look just like her. I'm her firstborn.
You do.
And I hear it all the time. And I think just the ability to go. My mother's 83 years old.
I can't believe that.
She is out playing bid whiz. She's in the senior community.
That's great.
Playing bid whiz to 2 in the morning. Every time I talk to her, well, I got in about 1 o'clock.
You sure she ain't got a little tenderoni, a little boyfriend out there on the south side?
I mean, they kicking it.
They kicking it there. She keeping it on the down low. She is.
But you know, I love that in her, that she still has that energy, and sense of humor, and I look just like her. Exactly. I hope I have the longevity that she has.
Yeah,
man,
me too.
That's great.
90 longevity runs in my family. My grandmother was 98 when she passed.
Wow.
And my mom will be 90 in August, and so she's hanging in there and doing as well as you can with dementia, but she's well taken care of, and happy about that.
That's really good. Harold, how about you? What attribute do you think?
You know, I think for me, probably my mom has a strong will, and she's a very determined person. And I think I probably inherited, you know, that from her. You know, just the whole notion of, you know, putting your mind to something and seeing it through to its conclusion, to you know, a desired or an expected end. And I think I inherited that from her. And my wife is constantly reminding me that the older I get, the more I look like her. So I was just with my mom last week. So she's transitioning into a senior community. We're selling our home. So, and my mother has some health challenges. She cared for my father when he had dementia.
She did that for many years.
She did it for 10 years, 9 years.
Wow.
And probably 6 of those years, he should have been in a facility.
Sure.
And when you're a primary caregiver, it takes a toll on you.
Yes.
It really does.
So it really took a toll on her physically. So now she's finally gotten to a place to where she's wanting to take better care of herself. And so,
and I'm glad the family's encouraging her to do that.
Yes. And so my mother's 80. Your mother's 83. Your mother's 90.
My mom will be 79 later this year.
Right. So our mother's a similar age.
Sure.
So she, you know, I told my mom, I'm like, you know what, do whatever you have to do to add, you know, years and quality to
taking care of everybody
to the rest
else.
of your right, because that's what she's done. You know, taking care of everybody, and now we want her to just focus on her.
Yeah, we're fortunate that my sister, who is a retired research nurse from UW, she operates several adult care homes. So my mom is in one of those.
That's
and
good.
There's full-time staff there to take care of her. And also what's been happening is people from our church in Milwaukee that are getting older, their children are bringing them up here just to be with my sister. So my sister to take care of them. So the seniors in the church that are,
that's beautiful.
Have gotten older and need care. So they're coming to Madison and in the care of my sister, who they know, and they know she will take care of them. So that's a very good thing.
You know what I really enjoy as I listen to you three gentlemen talk is that you're in a position in terms of the stability of your family and where you are professionally that you can spend time with your mother. I mean, you just came back from Texas and you get to Milwaukee.
My mom's here.
That's right. I'm sorry, here in Madison.
I was visiting her yesterday.
Right. And Jerome, your mom's in Chicago, which is not far away. And my mom's in a memory care facility that's literally a 2-minute drive from my house. No stoplights. I mean, I can walk there in 15 minutes. This is just sort of a small thing, but just tell me your mother's first names. Jerome, we'll start with you and just go around.
Bessie. Bessie.
You don't hear that name anymore, Bessie. Was that a family name? Was that like a mother or grandmother's name?
No. I forget what she.
No, I got you.
She was named after.
Enis, how about you?
Go to
Okay.
Bishop. I'm gonna bring up my mom's names.
Okay, all right.
My mother's name is Ophelia Celestine. Her middle name was Celestine.
Celestine. Now, was that a family name? Was she named after a mother, or grandmother, or
She
aunt?
was
or no?
not. I think she was named after an aunt or something.
Okay.
Ophelia, but we know. I don't know Celestine.
Oh, you got?
My mom's name is Doretha, Rula Bonnet, Ruby, Idale, Pearl.
Wait. Say that again. Say that slow. And those are all. Wait. Oh my goodness.
Doretha, Rula Bonnet, Ruby, Idale, Pearl.
Now, were those her aunts or her mom's sisters
Yeah,
or fathers?
relatives.
Really?
Those are all her middle names.
Oh man, I love that.
Wow.
I mean, I thought my daughter has 2 middle names. I thought that was a lot.
Yeah.
So
Man.
where was your mom from?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. Oh yeah,
Yes.
Arkansas. They were naming after everybody.
They're naming after everybody. Tuesday, Sunday.
See, I have to have them in my phone. I can't remember.
Wait, he said. I thought the mayor was calling him. He was like, "No, I can find my mother's name."
That's right, mama's name.
And my mother's name is Verline. And the doctor or midwife or somebody was coming in to tend to my grandmother and had a black medical bag, and one of my mom's cousins said, "Hey, if there's a baby in that bag," because I guess they thought, the doctors was carrying the baby in the bag. Said, "If there's a baby in that bag, call her Verline." So my grandmother must have been tired to name the baby after something a little kid said. But yeah, that's how that's. So I think that's important. So Bessie, Doretha, I can't even
And
get the
don't
middle.
call her Dorothea.
It's Doretha. That's right.
Doretha.
It's
She will
Doretha.
correct you.
And Miss
Ophelia.
Miss Doretha, Miss Bessie, and Miss
Ophelia.
Ophelia. Man, that is really great. Well, it looks like we're getting close to being finished with our programming. But gentlemen, I really want to thank you for helping us to talk about this topic, because we talk about so many things when we get together. There's usually community things or there's issues coming up, but to sit down with you gentlemen and just walk through your lives a little bit, and just to remember that with all your accolades, your awards, your recognitions and responsibilities, that what prepped you for all of this has really been home, and namely your mothers. And so I hope that you understand the pride that our mothers, that your mothers have in you. Yes. And I don't think people realize that when they see us, we're really conducting ourselves, we're really modeling ourselves after something we saw when we were young kids. Mm-hmm. And crazy sociologists like Daniel Moynihan, or was he a sociologist or was he a senator? It was a Moynihan report. So whether he was working with sociologists or he was a senator, he was working with some sociologists trying to blame the plight of the black community on black women, and not looking at the strength and the precious gem that our mothers are, and how they really have shaped a nation, yes, and a whole culture by their investment in us. And so it's been really a pleasure to be here with fellow mama's boys, because I was always teased. And so I don't think I've ever been in a room with other mama's boys. And so we want to do this. And Mr. Ragland, as deputy mayor, I want to have you back sometime just to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives, because you have served a plethora of leaders, several mayors, but you've also worked in the Capitol, right. And you've got to be one of the most tenured staff and aides that has served the state of Wisconsin. And I would love.
That's his way of calling me old.
No, not as good as you look. No, brother, no. And so let me just say this. But anyway, I thank you all for being here and for sharing something that's really precious to us, and that's memories of your dear mothers. And hopefully, like me, you're making really good memories. Because with my mom's dementia, it overwhelmed me, because I just thought, man, my mom's gone, but I realized she's not. And so things I post about her, videos, I take. I mean, my mom was riding a bike 2 years ago. I have her on video. She was doing some dances. I have to get cable taken out of her room, because she was doing some dance that she must have just seen on TV, because that was some dirty dancing she was doing a couple weeks ago. But let's just remember to keep the memories. I know we're trying to maintain our own families, our own professions, and then we're watching something happen like the aging of our mothers that we can't control. But just remember that our mothers know how much we love them, how much pride we have instilled in us. And let's keep reminding them that when they see us, they're really seeing an investment.
One of the things I did with my grandmother before she passed, as she was getting older, and I did with my mom, is I started recording
Yes.
history. I just start wherever you feel like it. Just talking to the recorder and just tell me all the history that you remember about our family, and I, cherish those tapes. That I have.
That's beautiful. Keep doing that, and listeners, do that. Catch those memories because you think you're going to have forever to do that, or a lot of time, and so get it now while things are going well.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to be sending a link to your show to my mom, and I just want to give her a shout out and just say, Mom, thank you for the unconditional love that you've shown me over the years.
Likewise.
Absolutely, and love the mothers in your life. There are many people who are listening to this, and their mothers are gone, and Mother's Day that is a bad time, for them because their mothers are gone on, or they didn't have the kind of mothers that we had, that kind of upbringing. But I think if everybody just loves the mothers in their lives, whether it is their daughter, their niece, let's be the support that the mothers today that they need.
Sure,
absolutely.
And let's love our mothers who and how she is, because my mother was not flawless, but I love her for the sacrifices she made. I could do a whole show on things I wish my mom hadn't said, but that's not the purpose of Mother's Day, and that's not the purpose of life. And so I want people who are listening to think, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say. We're not ignoring the tough things, but we're also saying you only get one shot at your mother, and so remember the good, celebrate it, and celebrate the moms around you, because they are doing or attempting to do the same things our mothers attempted to do in our lives, and that's to build strong children, particularly strong men. They were trying to prepare us for a world that they knew was crazy. They knew the world in the 50s and the 60s we were coming up was crazy, and they tried to prepare us for the world that was coming, and that's really amazing. I just want to say as I conclude that there are a couple of things that you can do if you really enjoy this show. First, you can subscribe to our podcast. That means you will never miss an episode. And why would you want to miss an episode? You need to catch every episode. So if you used iTunes, you can just Google Black Like Me. Spotify,
okay, wait,
you can do
you're
this.
black?
Well, you weren't supposed to say that. You weren't supposed to say that.
Like us.
Like us. But like some of y'all. Y'all got me. No, that's a whole nother show. That's a whole. Eli, we're gonna need to erase that little colorism statement I just made. I will get you for that, Rayford. I will get you for that. If you use the Android, and I don't know why you would, but you can simply go to your Google search but type sponsor. Black Like Me podcast. So if you're an Android user, you can't just say Black Like Me. You got to say Black Like Me podcast. It'll bring up the podcast, and you can just subscribe right there. But again, folks, whether it is on Google search, on iTunes, or Spotify, you want to subscribe. And listen, you can also go to alexg.com so you can subscribe and also get my podcast and my blogs. I'm also writing regularly about my journey with my mom, with this journey with Alzheimer's. And so by doing so, you'll be updated on a weekly basis of all the things that I'm talking about. And finally, if you have any questions, thoughts, feedback, and I'm starting to have that trickle in, feel free to tweet me at Alex G Jr. That's ALEXGEE Jr. on Twitter, or you can find my Dr. Alex G Facebook fan page. I'm really excited about this show and that we're touching so many people around the globe, and I'm just excited about telling our stories, about just exemplifying Black excellence that happens every day, every place. But also, this is in a way of inviting our non-Black colleagues and friends who just want to journey a little bit with African-American men and women to just see a snapshot of how we were raised or how we go about life. This show is able to, that's what it's about. We want people to get a chance to see and appreciate our cultural upbringing. So thank you again for being part of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. And as we always say, keep listening, learning, and living better.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at www.alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.